Welcome to Sleepy Time Stories. White wings, unfinished love. The first light of spring touched the quiet lake with a soft golden glow. The water rested like clear glass, while a gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of fresh flowers across the shore. Tall green reeds danced with every breath of the wind. Birds welcomed the new morning with cheerful songs. It was a peaceful place where every sunrise promised another beautiful day. Near the northern side of the lake lived a young white swan named Zhar. His feathers shined like fresh snow beneath the morning sun. His eyes were calm and kind, and he loved to spend his days swimming across the peaceful water. Every morning, he greeted the fish beneath the surface, and every evening he watched the glowing sky as the sun slowly disappeared beyond the distant hills. His family believed that strength and honor were more important than anything else. They expected Zhar to become a respected leader among the swans one day. On the southern side of the same lake lived another young swan named Zhaha. Her feathers looked as soft as floating clouds. She carried herself with quiet grace, and every movement seemed as gentle as the flowing water around her. She loved flowers blooming near the shore and often watched colorful butterflies drifting across the fields. Her heart was filled with kindness, and she believed every living creature deserved love and peace. Although they lived on the same lake, they had never truly met. Their families stayed apart for many years because of old disagreements that no young swan fully understood. The elders rarely spoke about the past, but everyone knew that the distance between the two families was real. Because of this, the younger swans were expected to remain on their own side of the lake. One bright morning, Zhar decided to explore a quiet corner of the water that he had never visited before. He slowly glided through the shining lake while tiny ripples followed behind him. At the very same moment, Zhaha was collecting beautiful white feathers that had drifted onto the shore. She smiled as the gentle wind carried one feather into the air. It floated higher and higher until it crossed the water toward the place where Zhar was swimming. Zhar noticed the feather falling beside him. He carefully picked it up and looked across the lake. For the first time, he saw a beautiful white swan standing among the flowers. Their eyes met across the calm water. Neither of them spoke a single word. Time itself seemed to pause as the morning sunlight surrounded them with a quiet warmth. A gentle smile appeared on Zhaha's face. Without thinking, Zhar smiled back. Something new awakened deep inside both of their hearts. They did not know each other yet, but they both felt that this meeting was not an ordinary moment. It was the beginning of a story that neither of them could ever forget. Far away, the older swans quietly watched from the shadows. Their faces carried worry instead of joy. The peaceful lake remained silent, but unseen clouds were already gathering beyond the bright blue sky. The next morning, Zhar woke before the sun appeared above the hills. He could not stop thinking about the gentle smile he had seen across the lake. Every quiet moment brought the memory back to his heart. The soft white feather was still resting beside his nest. He looked at it once more before slowly walking toward the water. On the other side of the lake, Zhaha also carried the same feeling. She watched the morning mist floating above the water, wondered if the young swan would return. She had never felt so curious about someone she had only seen for a few moments. The memory of his warm eyes stayed with her through the long night. As the morning became brighter, both of them quietly moved toward the same peaceful place where they had first seen each other. The lake was calm and the air smelled fresh after a light rain during the night. Tiny drops of water sparkled on every green leaf like little stars. Zhar arrived first. He waited in silence while small fish swam around him A few moments later, Zhaha appeared from behind the tall reeds. Their eyes met once again, and this time neither of them looked away. A gentle happiness filled the quiet space between them. Zhar slowly moved closer across the clear water. He held the white feather in his beak and carefully placed it on the surface of the lake. The feather floated toward Zhaha until it gently touched her side. She smiled with quiet gratitude and held the feather close to her heart. For the first time they spoke. "My name is Zhar," he said with a soft voice. Zhaha looked at him with gentle eyes. "My name is Zhaha," she replied. The names felt strangely familiar, as if they had been waiting for this meeting long before either of them was born. They spent the morning talking about the lake, the flowers, the changing seasons, and the birds that traveled across the sky every year. They laughed together and discovered that both of them loved peaceful mornings and quiet sunsets. Every word made them feel closer. Hours passed like a few simple moments. Neither of them noticed the sun climbing higher above the lake. They only realized how late it had become when the voices of distant family members echoed across the water. Before leaving, Zhar looked at Zhaha with hope in his eyes. "Can we meet here again tomorrow?" Zhaha smiled without hesitation. "Yes, I will be here." They slowly swam back toward their own sides of the lake. Both carried a quiet joy that made the whole world seem brighter. Hidden behind a group of old willow trees, an elder from Zhar family had watched everything in complete silence. His serious eyes followed the young swan until he disappeared into the distance. Without saying a word, the elder turned around and began swimming home. The peaceful secret shared by Zhar and Zhaha was no longer a secret. The sun rose slowly over the lake and painted the water with soft shades of gold. A gentle breeze moved across the quiet shore while the trees whispered to one another. It looked like another peaceful day, but neither Zhar nor Zhaha knew that change had already begun. Zhar reached their special place before sunrise. Every sound around him reminded him of Zhaha. The singing birds, the moving water, and the fresh morning air all seemed brighter when he knew she would soon arrive. He waited with a hopeful heart. A few moments later, Zhaha appeared from the morning mist. Her white feathers glowed in the first light of the day. As soon as she saw Zhar, a warm smile filled her face. They swam toward each other without fear. The distance between them felt smaller than ever before. They spent the morning exploring quiet parts of the lake that neither of them had visited before. They found a small island covered with wildflowers and tall green grass. Beautiful butterflies floated through the air while dragonflies danced above the water. It felt like a hidden world where only they existed. Zhar gathered a small blue flower that had fallen near the shore. He gently placed it beside Zhaha. She looked at the flower, then at him, and smiled with quiet happiness. No expensive gift could have meant more than that simple flower given with kindness. Zhaha thanked him with soft eyes and said that every beautiful memory becomes a treasure when it is shared with someone who truly cares. Zhar quietly nodded because he felt exactly the same. As the afternoon became warmer, they talked about their dreams. Zhar wished to travel beyond the distant hills one day and discover lakes that no swan from his family had ever seen. Zhaha dreamed of a future where every family on the lake could live together without fear or old anger. For a few quiet moments, they imagined that future together. It felt close enough to touch. Then a loud voice broke the peaceful silence. Zhar. The young swan quickly turned around. Standing near the shore was his father. His face showed no warmth. His eyes moved from Zhar to Zhaha and back again. "Come home now," he said. Zhar wanted to explain, but the words refused to come. He slowly looked at Zhaha. She gave him a small, comforting smile, hoping everything would be fine. Without another word, Zhar followed his father across the lake. That evening, the atmosphere inside his family nest felt colder than the night air. His father finally spoke. "You must never meet that swan again. Our family has not trusted her family for many years. Some distances must never be crossed." Zhar lowered his head, but his heart refused to accept those words. Across the lake, Zhaha watched the fading sunlight alone. She felt an unfamiliar sadness growing inside her. Deep in her heart, she knew this was only the beginning of a much greater storm. The following morning, the lake was covered with a thin layer of silver mist. The air felt cool and quiet. Even the birds sang more softly, as if they sensed that something had changed. Zhar stood near the edge of water looking toward the place where he always met Zhaha. His father's words echoed inside his mind, but his heart pulled him in another direction. He knew the risk, yet he could not stay away. When he reached their secret place, Zhaha was already waiting. The moment she saw him, relief filled her eyes. She had spent the entire night wondering if he would come back. "I thought you would never return," she said softly. "Nothing could keep me away forever," Zhar replied. For a little while they forgot every worry. They floated beside each other as gentle waves carried them across the quiet lake. The morning sunlight reflected from their white feathers, making them shine like two bright stars on the water. Zhar noticed that Zhar looked different. His smile was smaller, and his eyes carried a hidden weight. She asked what happened. Zhar slowly told her about the conversation with his father. He explained that their families had lived with anger for many years, though no one from the younger generation truly understood the reason. Zhaha listened in silence. When he finished, she looked across the calm lake. "It is strange," she whispered. "We were born long after those old days, yet we are expected to carry the same pain." Her words stayed in the air between them. Zhar believed she was right. Why should two hearts be separated because of mistakes they never made? They promised each other that they would not allow fear to decide their future. No matter how difficult life became, they would protect the friendship that had quickly grown into something much deeper. As the afternoon arrived, dark clouds slowly gathered above the hills. A cool wind moved across the water. Small waves replaced the calm surface of the lake. Before leaving, Zhar gently touched his beak against Zhaha's beak. For just a brief moment, neither of them spoke. They did not need words to understand what they felt. Hidden behind a line of tall reeds, another pair of eyes had been watching them. It was Zhaha's older brother. His face hardened as he quietly turned away. Without looking back, he hurried toward home. That evening, Zhaha's family gathered in silence. Her brother told everyone what he had seen beside the lake. The room became completely still. Her mother slowly closed her eyes. Her father rose without saying a single word. The peaceful love that had quietly begun beside the water was no longer hidden from either family. The storm waiting over the lake had finally reached their hearts. The next sunrise arrived without its usual warmth. Thick gray clouds covered the sky, and the lake looked darker than ever before. A cold wind swept across the water, while the trees bent quietly under its force. It felt as if nature itself knew that peace was slipping away. Inside his family home, Zhar stood before his parents. His father looked at him with disappointment, while the other elders remained silent. "You will not cross the lake again," his father said. "Our family has protected its honor for many years. We will not allow that history to be forgotten." Zhar listened with respect, but his heart refused to agree. He wanted to ask what had happened long ago, but every face around him showed the same cold expression. No one wished to speak about the past. Across the lake, Zhaha faced the same struggle. Her father spoke with a firm voice. "You will stay close to home from now on. Do not meet Jar again. Nothing good can come from that family." Zhaha lowered her head, but tears quietly filled her eyes. She had never disobeyed her family before. They had always protected and loved her. Yet this time, her heart and her duty were pulling in opposite directions. That evening, the sky turned deep orange as the sun slowly disappeared beyond the hills. Zhar slipped away from his family while everyone was busy preparing for the night. At the same time, Zhaha quietly left her home and followed the narrow path beside the reeds. When they finally reached their secret place, neither of them smiled. They simply looked at each other. The silence carried more emotion than words ever could. After a long moment, Zhar spoke. "They want us to forget each other." Zhaha gently shook her head. "I do not know how to forget someone who has become part of my heart." A soft breeze moved across the lake, carrying fallen leaves over the water. They floated together, just as Zhar and Zhaha wished they could always remain together. They talked until the first stars appeared above them. They promised that no matter how difficult life became, they would never stop believing in each other. As they prepared to leave, a loud splash echoed across the water. Several older swans emerged from the darkness. They had followed them. Zhar father stood at the front, while Zhaha father approached from the opposite side. The two families faced one another in complete silence. No one smiled. No one welcomed peace. Zhar and Zhaha slowly moved closer together as fear filled their hearts. For the first time, they realized their love was no longer only their own. It had become a battle between two families that refused to let go of the past. The cold night wrapped the lake in silence. The moon shined above the dark water, while gentle waves touched the shore. Zhar and Zhaha stood side by side as their families faced each other across the narrow channel. The air felt heavy with anger that had lived for many years. No one spoke at first. The only sound came from the wind moving through the tall reeds. Finally, Zhar father stepped forward. "This must end tonight," he said. "Your family has already caused enough pain. We will not allow another mistake." Before Zhar could answer, Zhaha father raised his voice. "Your family speaks about pain as if you were the innocent ones. You know what happened long ago." The younger swans looked from one family to the other. Neither Zhar nor Zhaha understood what they were talking about. They had grown up hearing whispers about the past, but no one had ever shared the full story. Zhar gathered his courage. "Please tell us the truth." The elders remained silent. Their eyes carried old memories that refused to fade. After a long pause, one of the oldest swans slowly spoke. "Many years ago, our families lived together on this very lake. We shared food, protected one another, and celebrated every new season. Then a terrible accident took away someone we all loved. Fear became blame. Blame became anger. That anger passed from one generation to the next until no one remembered how to forgive." The old swan lowered his head. "Now only the anger remains." His words drifted across the quiet water. Zhar felt sadness instead of fear. "How can we keep fighting over something none of us chose?" he asked. No one answered. The silence itself became the answer. Zhaha moved beside Zhar. "We cannot change the past," she said, "but we can choose a different future." For a brief moment, every swan stood without moving. It almost seemed possible that their words had reached the hearts of the elders. Then one older swan shook his head. "Some wounds never heal." The families slowly turned away from each other. Before leaving, Zhar looked at Zhaha. Their eyes met under the pale moonlight. They could not speak because too many watchful eyes surrounded them. Still, they understood each other. This was not the end. Even if the whole lake stood against them, they would search for another way to protect the love growing inside their hearts. Far beyond the hills, a flock of migrating swans crossed the night sky, heading toward distant lands. Zhar quietly watched them until they disappeared into the darkness. For the first time, a new thought entered his mind. Maybe the only place where their love could survive was somewhere far away from the lake they had always called home. The thought of leaving the lake stayed with Zhar through the entire night. He had never imagined living anywhere else. Every corner of the lake held a memory from his childhood, yet every new sunrise also reminded him that staying might mean losing Zhaha forever. The next morning, the sky was bright and clear. The water reflected the blue sky like a giant mirror. Everything looked peaceful, but neither Zhar nor Zhaha felt peace inside their hearts. They met again at their hidden island where wildflowers covered the soft green ground. It had become the only place where they could speak without fear. Zhar looked into Zhaha's eyes. "I have been thinking about something." She waited quietly. "What if we leave this lake and begin a new life somewhere else?" Zhaha remained silent for a long moment. She looked across the endless water that had been her home since the day she was born. Leaving would mean saying goodbye to her family, her memories, and everything she had ever known. "I have dreamed of peace," she finally said, "but I never dreamed of leaving home." Zhar gently nodded. "Neither did I." They sat together beneath the shade of an old willow tree. The branches swayed softly above them, while white feathers drifted through the air. "No matter where we go," Zhar whispered, "home will be wherever we are together." A small smile returned to Zhaha's face. For the first time in many days, hope replaced fear. They decided not to rush their choice. Before leaving, they would make one final attempt to bring their families together. If peace was still possible, they wanted to find it. As the afternoon faded, they separated and quietly returned home. That evening, Zhar walked to his father with a calm heart. "Please let us end this hatred," he said. "We are becoming prisoners of a past that none of us lived." His father looked at him without anger. Only sadness filled his eyes. "One day you will understand," he replied. "Some promises cannot be broken." At the same time, Zhaha spoke to her mother. "Love should never be treated like an enemy," she said. Her mother gently touched her wing. "I know your heart is kind, but kindness cannot erase old scars." Both families closed their hearts once again. Late that night, Zhar and Zhaha stood alone on opposite sides of the lake. They looked at the same moon. They whispered the same promise. "No matter what happens tomorrow, we will not give up on each other." Neither of them noticed a dark shape hiding among the reeds. Someone had heard every word, and before the next sunrise, their secret plan would no longer be a secret. Before the first light reached the lake, the hidden watcher hurried to Zhar family. Every word spoken beneath the moon was repeated without leaving out a single detail. The elders listened with serious faces. They now believed Zhar and Zhaha were planning to leave the lake together. When the sun finally rose, both families gathered in silence. No laughter filled the morning air. Even the young birds stayed quiet, as if they could feel the growing tension. Zhar stepped outside and immediately noticed that several older swans were watching him. Wherever he moved, they followed from a distance. It was clear that he was no longer trusted. Across the lake, Zhaha faced the same fate. Her father asked one of her older cousins to stay beside her throughout the day. She could no longer walk to the flowers or swim across the quiet water alone. Hours passed slowly. Every minute felt heavier than the one before. As evening approached, Zhar found a small white feather floating near the shore. Tied around it with a thin blade of grass was a tiny blue flower. He smiled. Only one swan would send him such a message. Without saying a word, he understood. Meet me at our island after sunset, when darkness covered the lake. Zhar quietly slipped away. He moved through the shadows with great care. Every sound made his heart beat faster. He feared someone might discover him before he reached the island. A few moments later, Zhaha arrived from the opposite side. She looked tired but relieved. They hurried toward each other. I do not think we have much time, Zhaha whispered. Our families know we wanted to leave. Zhar nodded. Then we must decide tonight. The gentle breeze carried the scent of rain across the water. Far away thunder rolled beyond the hills. They stood together beneath the old willow tree where so many happy memories had begun. If we leave, we may never see our families again, Zhaha said softly. If we stay, we may never be allowed to see each other again, Zhar answered. The truth hurt them both. After a long silence, they made their choice. At sunrise tomorrow, they would leave the lake and search for a new home where no one knew the history of their families. They held each other close while tears filled their eyes. Neither of them wanted to leave. They simply wanted the chance to love without fear. As they turned to leave the island, a loud crack echoed through the night. A broken branch fell behind them. They quickly looked toward the sound. Several dark figures were standing among the trees. Their families had found them once again. The escape they had planned with hope was about to become their greatest test. The night became completely still. Zhar and Zhaha stood frozen beneath the old willow tree, while the dark figures slowly stepped out from the shadows. Their parents and several elders surrounded the small island. There was no place to run and no path left to hide. Zhar moved in front of Zhaha to protect her. His heart was racing, but his voice remained calm. Please do not blame her. This was my decision too. Zhaha gently shook her head. No, she said. We made this choice together. Their words only made the silence heavier. Zhar's father slowly walked forward. His eyes were filled with disappointment instead of anger. Were you truly going to leave your home without saying goodbye? Zhar lowered his head for a moment. I never wanted to leave. I only wanted the freedom to love. Across the island, Zhaha's mother quietly wiped away a tear. She had never seen her daughter speak with such courage. One of the oldest swans stepped between the two families. Running away will not erase the past, he said. Every place has its own storms. You cannot escape pain forever. Zhar looked at the elder with steady eyes. Maybe not, but we can choose not to pass hatred to the next generation. The old swan said nothing. His eyes slowly turned toward the quiet lake. For a brief moment, hope returned. Then Zhaha's father spoke with a firm voice. Zhaha will return home tonight. She will never meet Zhar again. Zhaha's father nodded, and Zhar will remain with our family. This matter is finished. Those words struck both young hearts like cold winter wind. Zhaha tried to move toward Zhar, but her family gently guided her away. She looked back again and again as tears rolled down her face. Zhar remained standing beneath the willow tree. He watched until her white feathers disappeared into the darkness. It was the first night since they had met that they were forced apart. The island that had once been filled with laughter now felt empty. The flowers swayed quietly in the wind. The lake reflected the moon as if nothing had happened. But inside, two broken hearts, everything had changed. Neither Zhar nor Zhaha knew when they would see each other again. Far above them, a lonely white feather drifted across the night sky. The wind carried it away into the darkness, just like the peaceful days that now belonged only to memory. Several days passed without a single meeting. The lake that had once brought joy now felt silent and empty. Every sunrise reminded Zhar of the mornings he had shared with Zhaha. He still visited the northern shore, hoping to catch even the smallest glimpse of her across the water, but she never appeared. On the southern side of the lake, Zhaha felt the same loneliness. Her family never allowed her to swim alone anymore. Every step she took was watched. Every path she followed was chosen for her. She smiled when others looked at her, but the smile disappeared the moment she was alone. The flowers on the little island slowly began to fade. Without Zhar and Zhaha, the place no longer felt alive. One quiet evening, an old turtle slowly climbed onto a smooth rock near the center of the lake. He had lived there longer than anyone could remember. He had watched many generations come and go. He had also watched the love between Zhar and Zhaha grow from a simple smile into something powerful. As Zhar passed by, the old turtle called to him, "Do not let sadness turn your heart into stone." Zhar stopped. "What should I do when every path is closed?" The old turtle smiled gently. "Sometimes the strongest hearts are the ones that wait with patience." That same evening, the old turtle met Zhaha near the reeds. He shared the same wisdom with her. True love is not measured by the number of days spent together. It is measured by the strength to remain faithful when life pulls two hearts apart. Those words brought a little peace to both of them. A few nights later, a strong wind swept across the lake. Rain poured from the dark sky, and loud thunder echoed through the hills. While everyone hurried to shelter, a small white feather drifted through the storm. The wind carried it across the lake until it landed near Zhaha. She picked it up with trembling wings. She knew at once that it belonged to Zhar. She pressed the feather close to her heart and closed her eyes. At that very moment, far across the lake, Zhar looked into the storm. He watched another white feather disappear into the wind. Deep inside, he hoped it would somehow find its way to Zhaha. Neither of them knew that the storm had carried their silent messages to each other. For the first time since their separation, both of them smiled. It was only a small sign, but sometimes even the smallest sign is enough to keep hope alive. Neither of them realized that fate was already preparing a much greater test, one that would change both of their lives forever. Summer slowly began to fade. Cool winds returned to the lake, and the leaves on the old trees changed from bright green to shades of gold. The peaceful water reflected the colors of the season, but the beauty around them could not fill the emptiness inside Zhar and Zhaha. Weeks had passed since they had spoken face to face. Every morning, Zhar quietly looked toward the southern shore. Every evening, Zhaha searched the northern side of the lake. They never stopped hoping, even though each day ended with disappointment. One afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived. A graceful white crane landed near the center of the lake. The bird had traveled across many rivers and forests and carried stories from distant lands. Every animal gathered to hear those stories. Hidden among the crowd, Zhar noticed Zhaha standing on the opposite side. For the first time in many weeks, their eyes met again. Neither of them smiled. They were afraid someone would notice, but inside, both hearts were beating faster than ever. As the crane spoke, everyone listened carefully. Only Zhar and Zhaha listened to each other's silence. When the gathering ended, the families led everyone home. Just before leaving, Zhaha quietly dropped a small white feather onto the ground. The wind gently carried it across the grass. After everyone had gone, Zhar returned and found it. Wrapped around the feather was a tiny green leaf. There were no words, There did not need to be. It was her way of saying, I still remember. Zhar held the feather close to his heart. He whispered into the evening air, I always will. Far away, Zhaha stood beneath an old willow tree. She looked toward the fading sunset and somehow felt that Zhar had understood her message. That night, both of them looked up at the same sky. Thousands of stars filled the darkness. The distance between them felt endless. Yet the same moon shined over both hearts. Neither of them knew that their families had already begun making plans for their future. Plans that did not include each other. The season was changing. Soon, their lives would change as well. And the hardest chapter of their love story was about to begin. Autumn covered the lake with quiet beauty. Golden leaves floated across the water while the cool morning wind carried them from one shore to the other. The peaceful view hid the sadness that was slowly growing inside two young hearts. One evening, Zhar returned home after swimming alone. As he entered the family nest, he saw many elders gathered together. Their faces were serious. His father looked at him. You are old enough to begin your own family. Soon we will choose a bride for you from a respected Swan family. The words struck Zhar like a cold wave. He slowly shook his head. My heart already belongs to someone. The elders remained silent. His father answered with a calm but firm voice. Sometimes the heart must obey the family. Zhar lowered his head, but he could not accept those words. On the other side of the lake, Zhaha faced the same painful moment. Her mother gently spoke to her. A good family has asked for your future. Your father believes this will bring peace to our home. Tears filled Zhaha's eyes. I cannot give my heart to someone else. Her mother held her wing with love. I know, but not every dream becomes reality. That night, Zhar walked alone to the northern shore. At the very same time, Zhaha stood on the southern shore. A wide stretch of quiet water separated them. The moon reflected across the lake like a silver path. Neither of them could cross it. Neither of them could forget. A gentle breeze carried the sound of distant birds flying south for the winter. Zhar closed his eyes. He remembered the first white feather, the first smile, the little island covered with flowers. Every memory felt brighter than the moon above him. Across the lake, Zhaha remembered those same moments. A tear slipped down her face and disappeared into the water. Without speaking, they made the same silent promise. Even if the world forced them apart, their love would never become a lie. Far behind them, their families continued preparing for futures neither of them wanted. The days of freedom were coming to an end. Soon a choice would be demanded from both of them. A choice between family and love. Neither path would leave their hearts unbroken. Winter arrived quietly. A thin layer of ice formed along the edges of the lake. Cold winds swept across the water, and the flowers on the little island disappeared beneath the frost. The place where Zhar and Zhaha had shared their happiest moments now stood silent. Days passed without hope. Their families continued preparing the futures they had chosen for them. Every conversation reminded Zhar and Zhaha that time was running out. One snowy morning, Zhar made a decision. He could not let everything end without seeing Zhaha one last time. Before sunrise, while the others were still asleep, he slipped away from his home. The cold water stung his wings, but he kept moving toward the little island. When he arrived, he waited in silence. The sky slowly turned pale. For a moment, he feared she would never come. Then, through the morning mist, he saw a familiar white figure. It was Zhaha. She had made the same decision. As they reached each other, neither of them spoke. They simply stood together. After so many weeks apart, words no longer seemed important. Zhaha gently rested her head against Zhar. He closed his eyes. The quiet moment felt like the entire world had stopped. After a long silence, Zhar finally spoke. "If this is our last meeting, I do not want to leave with regrets." Zhaha looked into his eyes. "It will never be the last meeting in my heart. No matter where life takes us, you will always live there." A tear rolled down Zhar's face. He had always believed he was strong. Now he realized that love could make even the strongest heart tremble. They spent the morning remembering every beautiful moment they had shared. The first white feather, the blue flower, the hidden island, the promises beneath the moon. Every memory became a treasure they held close. As the sun climbed higher, they knew it was time to leave. Slowly they stepped back. Neither wanted to turn away. Finally, Zhaha whispered, "If fate is kind, we will meet again." Zhar gave her a gentle smile. "And if fate is not kind, I will still spend my life loving you." They looked at each other for one final moment before swimming toward opposite shores. Neither of them noticed the fresh tracks in the snow behind the trees. Someone had followed them, and this time, their families would make sure there would never be another secret meeting again. The morning after their final secret meeting felt colder than any winter day before. A heavy silence rested over the lake. The water moved slowly beneath the gray sky, and even the birds seemed afraid to sing. When Zhar returned home, his family was already waiting. No one greeted him. His father stepped forward with sadness in his eyes. "We know where you went." Zhar did not deny it. He stood quietly and accepted the truth. His father let out a long breath. "You have broken our trust again. From this day forward, you will not leave our side without permission." Zhar looked toward the distant southern shore. He knew what that meant. He would no longer have any chance to see Zhaha. Across the lake, Zhaha faced the same painful moment. Her father had also learned about the meeting. His voice was calm but firm. "You have made your choice. Now we must make ours. Tomorrow we will send you to live with our relatives on another lake. You will begin a new life there." Zhar felt the ground disappear beneath her. Another lake. Far away. A place where Zhar could never find her. She wanted to speak, but no words came. That evening, snow began to fall across the quiet lake. Large white flakes covered the reeds, the trees, and the little island where their love had first begun. Far apart, Zhar and Zhaha looked across the frozen water. Neither of them knew this would be the last night they would ever see the same lake together. Before sunrise, Zhaha left with her family. She looked back again and again. The lake grew smaller with every step. The little island slowly disappeared behind the falling snow. At that very moment, Zhar stood on the northern shore. Something inside his heart told him that she was leaving. He searched the distant horizon. He called her name into the cold wind. Zhaha. Only silence answered him. The wind carried his voice across the empty lake, but it reached no one. Far away, Zhaha suddenly stopped walking. She closed her eyes. For a brief moment, she felt as if someone had called her name. A single tear fell onto the snow. Then she continued walking without looking back. The distance between them was no longer measured by the width of the lake. It was measured by fate itself, and neither of them knew if they would ever meet again. The lake felt empty after Zhaha left. Every morning Zhar swam to the southern shore without thinking. He would stop there and stare across the silent water. Deep inside, he already knew she was gone, but his heart refused to accept it. Winter grew colder with each passing day. Snow covered the little island where their story had begun. The blue flowers were gone, and the old willow tree stood bare against the gray sky. It seemed as if the island was mourning with him. Days turned into weeks. Zhar spoke very little. He no longer joined the other young swans. He spent most of his time alone, watching the sky and wondering where Zhaha might be. His parents noticed the change, even though they believed they had done the right thing. Seeing their son lose his joy filled them with quiet regret. Far away on another peaceful lake, Zhaha tried to begin a new life. Her relatives welcomed her with kindness. The lake was beautiful. The water was clear. The trees were tall. Everything looked perfect. But to Zhaha, it never felt like home. Every sunrise reminded her of Shah. Every white feather floating on the water reminded her of the first day they met. She smiled politely to everyone around her, but every night she cried beneath the stars. One evening, an elderly swan who lived on a new lake quietly sat beside her. He had noticed the sadness in her eyes. He spoke with a gentle voice. Some hearts never stop waiting. Zhaha looked at him. Do you believe true love can survive distance? The old swan smiled softly. Distance can separate wings. It cannot separate two hearts that truly remember each other. His words brought warmth to her heart. That same night, many miles away, Zhar looked up at the same moon. He whispered into the quiet air, I hope you are safe. At that exact moment, Zhaha looked at the moon and whispered, I hope you are happy. Neither of them heard the other's words, yet somehow, both smiled through their tears. The moon continued its silent journey across the sky, carrying the wishes of two hearts that still belonged to each other. Their love had survived separation, but a new chapter was waiting, a chapter where fate would test them one final time before deciding whether their story would end with hope or with heartbreak. Winter slowly faded, and the first signs of spring returned to the land. Ice melted along the edges of the lakes. Flowers began to bloom again, and warm sunlight filled the air. Nature welcomed a new season, but Zhar and Zhaha still carried the sadness of the old one. Nearly a year had passed since they had last seen each other. Zhar had grown stronger, but the quiet kindness in his heart had never changed. He still kept the small white feather that had started everything. It rested safely beneath the old willow tree, hidden where only he knew. One morning, a flock of traveling swans landed on his lake to rest before continuing their journey. Zhar greeted them with respect. As they talked, one traveler mentioned another beautiful lake far beyond the hills. Without thinking, Zhar asked if they had met a young white swan named Zhaha. The travelers looked at one another. One of them slowly nodded. Yes, we met a swan with that name. She was gentle and kind, but her eyes were filled with sadness. Those words filled Zhar with both joy and pain. She was alive. She still existed somewhere beneath the same sky. That was enough to keep hope alive. Far away, Zhaha also met travelers from distant lakes. During their visit, one old swan spoke about a quiet young swan named Zhar, who often stood alone beside an old willow tree. The moment she heard his name, her heart began to race. She wanted to ask 100 questions. Was he healthy? Did he still smile? Did he remember her? But before she could speak again, the travelers continued their long journey. That evening, both Zhar and Zhaha stood beside their separate lakes. Neither knew exactly where the other lived. Neither knew how far apart they truly were. Yet both now carried the same comforting thought. You are still out there. The wind gently moved across the water. A single white feather lifted into the air. It traveled higher and higher until it disappeared beyond the distant hills. It was as though the sky itself was trying to reunite two hearts that had never stopped loving each other. Neither of them realized that destiny was quietly preparing one final meeting, a meeting that would bring both happiness and the deepest heartbreak of all. Spring reached its brightest days. Fresh green leaves covered the trees, colorful flowers bloomed along every shore, and the lakes were filled with new life. The world seemed ready for a new beginning, yet Zhar and Zhaha still lived with memories that time could not erase. One morning, swans from many different lakes gathered for the annual spring gathering. It was a peaceful event where families met, shared stories, and welcomed the new season together. By chance, both Zhar and Zhaha traveled there with their families. Neither of them knew the other would be there. The gathering was held beside a wide crystal lake, surrounded by tall trees. Hundreds of white swans covered the water like floating clouds. As Zhar walked along the shore, he suddenly stopped, far away. Among the crowd, he saw a familiar white figure. His heart almost stopped. It was Zhaha. At the same moment, Zhaha looked across the lake. Her eyes found Zhar. For a few seconds, the whole world disappeared. The voices around them faded. The water became still. Only their eyes remained locked on each other. Without thinking, they slowly walked closer. Every step felt like a dream. When they finally stood face to face, neither could speak. A year of silence melted away in a single moment. Zhaha smiled through tears. "You are well." Zhar nodded. "I never stopped hoping I would see you again." For a little while, they forgot everyone around them. They talked about the passing seasons, the lonely nights, and the memories they had protected inside their hearts. Neither had forgotten, neither had stopped loving, but their happiness lasted only a few moments. Their families noticed them. The smiles on every face disappeared. The old anger returned as quickly as it had before. Zhar's father called his name. Zhar's mother gently pulled her daughter back. The distance between them returned once again. Before leaving, Zhar quietly looked at Zhaha. "No matter what happens, thank you for loving me." A tear rolled down Zhaha's face. "I will always love you." Those were the last words they shared. Their families walked in opposite directions. Neither Zhar nor Zhaha looked back. They knew that if they did, their hearts might never find the strength to keep walking. Above them, two white feathers drifted through the warm spring air. The wind carried them together for a brief moment. Then they slowly drifted apart, just like the two hearts that had loved each other with everything they had. The journey home was long and quiet. Neither family spoke about what had happened at the spring gathering. The elders believed they had prevented an old mistake from returning, but inside their hearts, both Zhar and Zhaha carried a fresh wound. Days passed. The memory of seeing each other again refused to fade. For Zhar, those few moments became a light that kept him moving forward. For Zhaha, they became both a blessing and a sorrow. One peaceful evening, Zhar returned to the old willow tree beside his lake. He uncovered the small white feather he had hidden there long ago. It was no longer as bright as before. Time had gently changed it, but to Zhar, it was still the most precious thing he owned. He placed it on the water and watched it drift away. "Go wherever the wind takes you," he whispered. "If it reaches her, let it tell her I never forgot." Far away, on another lake, Zhaha sat alone beneath a flowering tree. A soft breeze crossed the water. A single white feather floated gently toward her. She reached out and caught it before it drifted away. She smiled through quiet tears. It felt like the lake itself had delivered a message from someone far away. She held the feather close to her heart. "Thank you, Zhar," she whispered. "I never forgot either." As the sun disappeared below the horizon, both of them made the same decision without knowing it. They would stop fighting against fate. They would not stop loving, but they would no longer ask their families to change. Some hearts must carry love quietly for the rest of their lives. The seasons continued to change. Years slowly passed. Young swans grew into adults. The old anger between the two families became weaker with time, but the years that had been lost could never return. One calm autumn morning, news spread from lake to lake. The oldest swan who had first spoken about the ancient quarrel had passed away. Before leaving the world, he shared one final truth. The great misunderstanding that divided the two families had never been anyone's fault. It had been built on fear, grief, and silence. When the news reached both families, many elders lowered their heads in regret. They finally understood that they had protected anger for many years while sacrificing two innocent hearts. But by then, time had already taken away the chance to change the past. Some mistakes reveal their truth only after they have already broken everything they touched. The truth spread from one lake to another. For the first time in many years, the two families stopped blaming each other. The walls of anger that had stood for generations slowly began to fall. The elders met beside the old lake and spoke with honesty instead of pride. Many of them wept. They realized that the hatred they had protected for so long had stolen the happiness of two innocent swans. Zhar father stood quietly beside the water. He looked at the old willow tree where his son had spent countless evenings alone. With a heavy heart, he whispered, "I was trying to protect my family. Instead, I hurt my own son." On the southern shore, Zhaha mother held a white feather in her wing. Tears rolled down her face. She remembered every time her daughter had begged for understanding. Only now did she truly hear those words. The families agreed to leave the past behind forever. They removed the invisible boundaries that had divided the lake for so many years. Young swans were free to swim wherever they wished. The lake was finally united, but one question remained. Where were Zhar and Zhaha now? They had not returned to the old lake for many seasons. Messengers traveled across rivers and forests searching for them. Many lakes were visited. Many travelers were asked. Weeks passed without an answer. Then one evening, an old heron arrived with news. He had recently seen Zhar living alone on a quiet northern lake. He was healthy. He was respected, but he still spent every sunset looking across the water as though waiting for someone. A few days later, another traveler brought news of Zhaha. She was also living peacefully on a distant lake. She smiled kindly to everyone around her, yet every spring she placed a single white feather on the water and watched it drift into the distance. When both families heard these stories, silence filled the air. They finally understood. Time had moved forward. Life had continued, but love had never left the hearts of Zhar and Zhaha. The elders decided there was only one thing left to do. They would find them, not to separate them again, but to ask for forgiveness. Whether forgiveness would come was a question only two gentle hearts could answer. The search lasted for many weeks. Swans traveled across wide rivers, peaceful lakes, and quiet forests. Every traveler carried the same message. Please come home. The past is over. Your families wish to ask for forgiveness. At last, the messengers found Zhar beside a quiet northern lake. He listened without interrupting. When they finished speaking, he looked across the calm water for a long time. Then he smiled gently. I forgave them a long time ago. Holding on to anger would only create another story like ours. The messengers lowered their heads with respect. Soon they traveled to the distant lake where Zhaha lived. She welcomed them with the same kindness she had always shown. When they shared the message, tears filled her eyes. She closed them for a moment. Then she softly replied, "I never hated my family. I only wish they had trusted my heart." The messengers invited both of them to return to the old lake. Several days later, Zhar arrived. The old willow tree was still standing. The little island had become beautiful once again. Blue flowers covered the ground just as they had on the day he first met Zhaha. A few moments later, another white swan appeared on the opposite shore. It was Zhaha. They slowly walked toward each other. Neither of them rushed. Years had taught them patience. When they finally stood face to face again, both smiled. There were tears in their eyes, but no sadness, only gratitude. Their families gathered nearby. One by one, the elders stepped forward and asked for forgiveness. No excuses, no pride, only honest regret. Zhar and Zhaha listened quietly. Then they looked at one another. Zhar spoke first. "The past cannot be changed." Zhaha gently nodded, "But the future can." The families embraced one another for the first time in many generations. The old hatred was finally gone. Everyone hoped that the two swans would now begin the happy life they had once dreamed about. But fate had written a different ending. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the hills, Zhar looked at Zhaha with a peaceful smile. Sometimes love is not about staying together. Sometimes love is about being grateful that it happened at all. Zhaha understood. They gently touched their beaks one final time. Then they turned and walked in different directions. Not because they no longer loved each other, but because too many years had passed, and each had built a different life. Their hearts remained together. Their paths did not. The unfinished love of two white wings became a memory that would live on forever in every gentle breeze that crossed the old lake. The sun slowly disappeared behind the distant hills. As Zhar and Zhaha walked away from each other for the last time, neither of them looked back. They knew that if they did, the strength they had found after so many years might disappear. The families remained silent. No one tried to stop them. No one asked them to stay. Everyone finally understood that love cannot always be measured by living together. Sometimes the deepest love is the one that quietly lives inside the heart forever. As the seasons passed, the old lake changed once again. Young swans from both families swam together without fear. They played across the entire lake, never knowing there had once been invisible borders dividing the water. The elders often watched them with gentle smiles. Their greatest lesson had come too late, but at least the next generation would never carry the same burden. Far away, Zhar continued living beside the peaceful northern lake. He became known for his wisdom and kindness. Whenever a young swan asked him why he always smiled at the sunset, he simply answered, "Every sunset reminds us to be thankful for the people who changed our lives." On another beautiful lake, Zhaha became loved by everyone around her. She cared for young birds that had lost their families and helped every injured creature she found. Her kindness grew from the love she had once received. Every spring, she still placed a single white feather on the water, not because she was waiting, but because remembering someone with love is never a burden. Years later, travelers often spoke about two gentle white swans who lived on different lakes but shared the same peaceful heart. Most listeners believed the story was only a beautiful legend. Only the oldest birds knew it had truly happened. Whenever the wind crossed the hills between the two lakes, white feathers sometimes floated through the sky. Some believed it was only the wind. Others believed it was nature quietly carrying the memories of Zhar and Zhaha from one heart to the other and somewhere beyond the clouds. The sky kept their unfinished love safe forever. Their story never ended with a wedding. It never ended with a family. It ended with forgiveness, respect, and a love that remained pure until the very last day. That is why every spring, when white feathers dance across a quiet lake, some still whisper the names Zhar and Zhaha with gentle smiles. Many years passed. The young swans who had once played beside the old lake became parents of their own. They raised their children without teaching them fear or hatred. Instead, they taught them kindness, honesty, and respect. The old lake became known as the Lake of Peace. Travelers often stopped there to rest. They admired the calm water and the friendly swans who welcomed everyone without asking where they came from. Very few knew that this peace had been born from two broken hearts. One quiet spring morning, an elderly Zhar returned to the old lake. His white feathers had lost their youthful shine, but his gentle eyes remained the same. He slowly walked to the old willow tree. The tree had grown taller over the years. Its branches reached over the water, just as they had on the day he first met Zhaha. He smiled softly. Every memory was still alive. A little later, another graceful swan arrived from the southern path. It was Zhaha. Time had changed them both, but the kindness in their hearts had never faded. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. There was no sadness, no regret, only peace. They walked together to the little island where blue flowers covered the ground once again. The place looked almost exactly as it had many years before. Zhar gently picked up a small blue flower and placed it beside Zhaha. She laughed quietly. "You still remember?" He smiled. "I always will." They spent the afternoon talking about their lives, the places they had visited, and the young swans they had helped along the way. Neither asked what might have been. Neither wished to change the past. As the sun began to set, they stood beside the water. Two white feathers drifted down from the sky and landed together on the quiet lake. Zhaha watched them floating side by side. "Perhaps this is how our story was always meant to end." Zhar nodded gently, not with sorrow, but with gratitude. They smiled one last time before leaving the island. The wind carried the two feathers across the peaceful water until they disappeared into the glowing sunset. From that day on, every swan who visited the old lake heard the same lesson. Love is never wasted. Even when two hearts cannot stay together, true love can still make the world kinder for everyone who comes after them. Years quietly became memories. The old willow tree continued to watch over the peaceful lake. Every spring, its branches filled with fresh green leaves. Every autumn, they gently fell into the water, just as they had for countless seasons. The story of Zhar and Zhaha was never written on stone. It lived in the hearts of every swan who heard it. Parents told the story to their young before bedtime. They spoke of two white swans who chose love over hatred, kindness over revenge, and forgiveness over pride. The children always asked the same question: did they truly love each other until the end? The elders smiled gently. Yes, they never stopped. One peaceful evening, Zhar returned to the northern shore where his journey had begun. He watched the golden sunset spreading across the calm water. A soft breeze carried the familiar scent of wild flowers. It felt exactly like the morning he had first seen Zhaha cross the lake. At that same moment, far away, Zhaha stood beside her own lake. She watched the same sunset. She closed her eyes and smiled. Without knowing why, both of them whispered the same words: "Thank you. Thank you for changing my life." The wind carried their voices into the evening sky. No answer came. None was needed. Love had already spoken through every choice they had made. As darkness slowly covered the lakes, thousands of stars appeared above them. The same stars that had watched two young swans meet for the first time. The same stars that had watched them cry, hope, forgive, and finally let go. Nature had witnessed every chapter of their unfinished love. Nothing had been forgotten. Some stories end with celebration, some end with tears. Their story ended with quiet peace, a peace earned through patience, sacrifice, and hearts that never learned how to hate. Long after both lakes had fallen asleep, two white feathers drifted high above the hills. For a brief moment, they floated side by side beneath the moon. Then the gentle wind carried them into the endless night. Their wings had traveled different paths. Their love had always shared the same sky. Many more seasons came and went. Spring painted the shores with flowers. Summer filled the lakes with warm light. Autumn covered the water with golden leaves. Winter wrapped everything in quiet white snow. The world kept changing, but one story remained. Travelers still visited the old lake. They often noticed two white feathers resting near the old willow tree. No one knew where they came from. The elders would simply smile and say that some gifts are left behind by love itself. One peaceful morning, long after Zhar and Zhaha had become part of old memories, a pair of young swans arrived at the lake. They came from different families. They were shy, curious, and full of hope. As they explored the shore, they found the little island covered with blue flowers. They also found two beautiful white feathers lying side by side. The young swans looked at each other and smiled. Without knowing why, they each picked up one feather. An old swan watched them from a distance. He slowly walked closer. With a gentle voice, he shared the story of Zhar and Zhaha. The young swans listened without speaking. When the story ended, tears filled their eyes. They made a quiet promise. No family, no fear, and no old hatred would ever decide who they were allowed to love. The old swan smiled. That was the lesson Zhar and Zhaha had left behind. Not a lesson about sadness, a lesson about courage, a lesson about forgiveness, a lesson that love should never become a prisoner of the past. As the sun rose higher, the young swans walked together across the peaceful shore. Above them, two white birds circled through the bright blue sky. For just a moment, they looked almost like Zhar and Zhaha. Watching over the lake they had once called home, a gentle breeze moved through the willow branches. Two white feathers lifted into the air. They danced together above the shining water before disappearing into the endless sky. Their love had never been completed, yet it had never been broken. It became a light for every heart that believed kindness is stronger than hatred. And so the story of two white wings came to its final page, not with an ending, but with a memory that would live as long as rivers flowed, flowers bloomed, and white feathers drifted across a quiet lake. The end.